Dot, 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 dot. Good morning, everybody. This is Grant, and I'm going to share with you today what percent of your investable dollars should be actually going to crypto. And this is a painful truth, especially for the hype boys that really love crypto. We're also going to be talking about really quickly, believe it or not, the correlation to that on why communes typically fail. Yes, me and Marissa have been part of a few alternate communities and alternate living lifestyles, and there is a consistent reason we have seen that alternate communities fail, and it's not what you think. It's not hippie juice. That's not what's happening. So we're going to be talking about the only three ways there is to make money, how that correlates to roughly what percent of your investable dollars should actually be going to crypto, and the correlation on how on earth that even correlates to why hippie communes or alternate communities in general typically don't work. Welcome to the State of the Spark Show. Now, before any of that, we have only one piece of other news, and it's a fun fact, and it correlates to the rest of the story. But before any of that, you know what we're going to do. We're going to share a morning cup of gratitude. What are you grateful for this morning? What's getting you pumped? With our piece of other news, some of you are anti-pumped, unpumped, but we're going to be covering what you're grateful for right now, not what you're ungrateful for. So what are you grateful for? What's got you going? I don't care how tough it was yesterday. It was a tough day yesterday. I don't care. It was a really difficult day. We had a lot of work to do. There was a lot of catch up, but in the end, the net gain was huge. So I'm going to start with my warm cup of morning gratitude. Let's talk about it. And I want to give you an insight into how gratitude works. Gratitude is not a feeling that you wait for. Gratitude is something you dictate out to the world, and it creates its own feedback loop, and it also rescripts anything that you've been experiencing as adding to your story as opposed to taking away from your story. So yesterday was overwhelming. I worked from about 4 a.m., give or take. Is that fair? Yeah, about 4:30 a.m. until about 9:30 p.m., nearly continuously. I had a few appointments. I had a few phone calls. But aside from that, I was generally clicking. I wanted to go to the gym, and I wasn't able to. And that could cause people some dislike, lack of gratitude. But I want to give you an insight into how gratitude actually works. Gratitude says it looks at that and writes the story. What is the meaning of this busy day I had yesterday? Does this mean that I am trapped? Does this mean that I haven't been delegating my process as well? Does this mean that my business is the website company is wobbly? Does it mean that? No, not at all. I had one employee out sick, not with COVID, just sick. I got another employee enjoying her birthday. So what am I grateful for? And this is how gratitude works. All of that is behind the screen. And this is how gratitude works. I look at all that and say, no, what is the meaning of that? What do I want these things to mean to me? I was able to step into my company and allow the person who was sick to take a day off, being sick and being okay with that. I was allowed to step into my company and let my person who has a birthday enjoy that birthday with her boyfriend who they currently live in different states. So they're able to spend that time uninterrupted. I know I don't like to get interrupted by a boss or a friend or a coworker when I'm having a day off. It was also a sign that in general, I don't normally have to do this because the team generally does do this. It was another sign that I am very skilled at this work. When I step in, I actually clear what amounts to, I think, like weeks of work, and I only worked it for a day, and I've got another day today. What it also does is I'm grateful for insight into these roles because it's not frontline. I usually spend my day in strategy and in sales and in just handling tier 2 work and then kind of growing the company. But on days like yesterday and days like today, I can get a front row seat to what's really going on between my clients and the communications with my employees and my team. I am grateful, therefore, for the opportunity to work elbow deep in the company for a few days a month now and again to get a frontline seat, a front row seat, a frontline view of what is going on with the company, to connect with my customers, to solve problems lickety split. I'm grateful that I have a grasp of these things. I'm grateful for all of my studies that have lent themselves to that. I'm massively grateful. So I just wanted to take a minute and give you insight that gratitude doesn't bubble up necessarily all the time. It can, but it doesn't necessarily just come out of nowhere and show up and you think, I suddenly feel grateful. Gratitude is a practice where you look at your life and you decide what the activities of yesterday or when you decide what the activities of earlier today mean, and you capstone it when you declare a piece of gratitude around it. So, what am I grateful for today? I'm grateful that I have multiple businesses. I'm grateful that I have multiple partners. I'm grateful that we've been investing 7, 8, 9 years into understanding business and understanding our investments and understanding money and cultivating our earning capacity. Look that word up. I am so grateful for all of that. I'm grateful that we have a business that my employees can have a sick day and it doesn't destroy us, that my employees can have a birthday weekend and it doesn't destroy us, that we can learn from each of these experiences. I'm grateful for that today. But what are you grateful for? If I don't see you in the comments, and I see you, there's 2 of you here, there's 1 of you here, there's 3 of you, 6 of, no, 3, 4, 1. How many of you out there are actually experiencing a degree of gratitude? Put it in the comments. I want to hear from you. And hey, listen, if you like to show it all, if you want to hear more about investment, financial freedom, crypto, mental freedom, like, subscribe, or just share this and tag someone who you think needs to hear about how much of their investable dollars they should be investing in crypto. What are the only 3 ways that you can actually make money, and how I'm structured in that, and correlating why communes fail. We're going to be talking about that. But let's talk about this one piece of other news to kind of give us context for the lesson today. So as of this morning, Bitcoin and the subsequent crypto universe just hit a 6-month low. Is this the bear market? Is this the bear crypto market? I don't know. Nobody really knows. But it is its 6-month low. And at a 6-month low, what do we know in principle about investments? Well, how I live with investments, not financial advice to you, but how I live in investments is you buy low and sell high. So what am I going to be doing today? Yes, dollar cost averaging is what I'm going to be doing. It's a 6-month low. It's at $38,830 as of right now. That's down 7% in the last 24 hours. That's a big chink in the armor, or a gap in the armor. Ethereum is down 11% to $2,800. So guess what I'm going to be doing today? I'm going to be buying some Ethereum. And the rest of the cryptos follow suit. And I'm going to be buying those up today because I'm going to be able to lower my dollar cost average. Now, just a few weeks ago, we were back up to the $50,000 mark on Bitcoin. And what does this mean for the average person? Well, not much, except it's going to be queuing us up for how much of your investable dollars should actually be going into crypto. You know, whether it's with our Discord or whether it's with the Patreon members, we talk a lot about risky projects, but I'm actually going to break down for you how I break down a hypothetical $10,000. If you had $10,000 to invest, well, before we get to that, I want to actually give you context on a little bit of why communes fail, how that correlates to the 3 ways to make money, and therefore what you should do if you had $1,000 or $10,000 of investable cash. Should you put in real estate? Should you put it in index funds? What should you be doing with it? And what percentage of that should even realistically be going into crypto? And why are we talking about this? Because as more and more people come to me and ask me about my strategies for cryptocurrency as of right now, and what I plan on doing with crypto in the near market, and are we in a bear market, and should I just keep it in my index fund, or what I should do? People know that we talk a lot about financial freedom in the Discord. They know that we talk about financial freedom because if you can't talk about financial freedom, and I don't mean fiat currency necessarily, perhaps financial freedom for you is no responsibilities, no needs, and no healthcare, and sitting on a beach drinking Mai Tais. That could be your financial security, is that I have none. And there's some zen, some paradoxicals into that, but not everyone, most people are not like that. So when they know that we're talking about financial freedom, we're actually talking about mental freedom, the mental freedom to pursue the things you want to pursue. You have to talk about crypto. If you're not talking about crypto, and if you're sick of me talking about crypto, I'm sorry, but I would not be doing my responsibility if I didn't share with you the opportunities that I'm taking. But there's a caveat. You don't throw, if you only had $10,000 or $1,000, you don't throw that entire amount not responsibly at crypto. So let's talk about real quick, though, how a lot of my thoughts on this began to form. In 2008, some of you might know this, the collapse happened. I was working at a Starbucks and I had people with PhDs in line next to people without even an AA or a GED looking for work. And that line went out the window, or out the door. So I began to do group interviews, and it was humbling for me. It was humbling for the PhDs. It was encouraging to the undereducated. But it shaped me and Marissa's worldview when we got married. When we got married, we thought and had quite frequent conversations about how the world was collapsing. I don't know how long you've been alive, but in the time that I've been alive, I have personally witnessed as an adult at least three moments that the world was ending, and we should, as they all said, develop an alternate community. We should live an alternate lifestyle, become a digital nomad. We should bail out of the system. When the shit hits the fan, you've heard this phrase quite a bit. Well, the shit hits the fan has hit the fan at least three times since I've been an adult, maybe twice as well before I was an adult. And me and Marissa, we were already working in the humanitarian field, and we were already living an alternate lifestyle. I was already in my 30s. She was young, just graduated college. And we decided we're already working in Haiti. We're already very comfortable with the developing and third world countries. We don't have responsibilities. We don't plan on having kids at all, ever. So what can we do? And we created a plan, and we put money away for about a year. And we took that money and we then traveled. We quit our jobs. We got rid of our apartments, sold everything. Sold nearly everything. Traveled the entire country for about a year, or I'm sorry, for a few months. We eventually ended up in Taos, New Mexico with an alternate community of people. And we saw a lot of interdynamics and financial dynamics and manipulation dynamics there. And then we ultimately moved to the Dominican Republic, where we lived an alternate lifestyle there. Marissa was learning how to scuba dive instruct, and I was trying to get infopreneuring up and running and coaching up and running. And it was very fun, but it was very challenging. I went through my worst adult depression for several reasons. Now let's put a pin in that for a second. You see, there's a storm brewing today. We're in the post-pandemic world. I've been on more than one call in the last 3 weeks where the spirit of it is, this thing's collapsing. We've got to do something different. Now, I don't disagree with these thoughts at all. I just don't think that we need financial and global crisis to believe that way. We need to believe that way at all times. Not that the world is collapsing, but that we should take control of our financial future. So whether it was as Marissa called it, the early aughts, the zeros of the 2000s, and the early 2000s, I remember when the stock market bubble collapsed, and just around 9/11, the end was coming. And that's when I met a lot of preppers, and I heard a lot about the prepper movement. And then in 2008, the collapse came. And as I mentioned, people like me and Marissa were entering career ages and realizing there's not a lot for us. The social contract is done. There's not going to be any social security for us. What should we do with our life? And then now the post-pandemic world is the third major one, where a lot of people are looking around the landscape and thinking, no one's going to take care of me. I have to take care of myself. And these discussions always end up with some leader saying, we need to bail out of an alternate system. And we need to bail out of this system, build an alternate system. And it usually begins with financial insecurity, future insecurity, the disenfranchised, what was called in the 70s, future shock. The shock that the future is arriving today, almost like a cultural clash. When you have culture shock and you go to Japan or India as an American or vice versa, and you arrive, there's this culture shock. Well, what's going on with the future shock is that future is happening today, and there are some people that are living in the future, building in Silicon Valley, building technologies, building our financial systems, and it's a shock when the rest of us encounter that immediately. And that shock can create sense of financial insecurity in the disenfranchised. Now, that's usually how it starts, but any intellectual person, any person who has any spiritual bent will immediately get off of this financial insecurity thing and think, well, I don't have a lot of prospects. How can I make this work for me? And they immediately start to explain, well, I want to live an alternate lifestyle. I want to build a community, build a hippie commune. And me and Marissa have seen this more than once. And as people, we have started our initiatives of sustainable living community. We have been a part of that with Taos, New Mexico. We've gotten involved with that with Earthships. We lived a little bit like that in the Dominican Republic. And so a lot of it could be fun. It could be an alternate lifestyle. And you start shaping your mind on how this could work for you because you don't have a lot of prospects in the typical financial system. And honestly, what it takes, the price it takes to make it in business, the price it takes to make it in the financial system, a lot of people start saying things like, well, people weren't made for this. People weren't made for the work hours. People weren't made for the responsibility. People weren't made for social media. People weren't made for text. Well, most of those people don't believe that people were made at all. They believe in evolution and that there's a more natural way to live. And honestly, when you have no financial prospects and you can't go any lower, hitting the beach and surfing and just figuring out what you're going to do for lunch later sounds really appealing unless you are actually poor. If you've ever actually been poor, you realize that that is a frightening prospect, because one day turns into 2 days, turns into a week. And we could talk about my time struggling with poverty in the early years, but we'll talk about that some other time. So Marissa and I had lived this lifestyle, and this is where most of the conversation comes up. I'm sure you've had a conversation with people about starting an alternate community, but this is what we learned very quickly. As soon as you get involved in efforts to put together a co-op, a sustainability company. Me and Marissa had the Lakeland Sustainability Co-op on our property here in Lakeland. We tried to start a commune and buy property together with a group of people. We've been involved in these conversations in several ways, and nearly every time, when you're in a community that is based on not fiat currency, but bartering, trading, collaborating, the currency is trust. And in that, you realize that there are some power players immediately who don't necessarily trust, know that they won't be trusted, so they get right into power games. And this happens nearly every single time. This is why communes fail, because someone gets invited into the group that really isn't trustworthy, and they're often the person saying, we need trust, and really browbeating people with that. But what that means is they don't feel trust, they don't feel trusted. And then you have power games that immediately begin to happen. Why is this? Because they're continuing their sense of financial insecurity. And they realize very quickly that a commune or an alternate life community, or a community that doesn't take into account the financial system, they realize very quickly when they look into the future that as they age, as they have more medical needs, as they have needs for their children, as they want to send their children to school. Why do they want to send their children to school? They realize that it is unsustainable to live completely alternate to mainstream economic. And by economic, I don't just mean fiat, but whatever that system is. To live alternate to whatever the financial system is not sustainable. In fact, the people who have actually done it very well have taken a step first, and that is they have secured their financial future first. And this is what me and Marissa did when we moved back from the Dominican Republic. We looked into our future and we realized we don't want to be a drain on the system as an elderly couple. We don't want to be dependent. We're not going to have kids. We have no safety net. Part of our fears came from the fact that the social contract was gone already. So where communes fail and communities fail is when people get involved. At first, it's awesome. It's alternate. There's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of awareness building. There's a lot of relationship cultivation. There's a lot of personal development. But what people realize before too long goes is, I can't pay for my cancer treatments with a goat. I don't know if you guys watch Alaskan Bush People, but watching those people try to pay for dental work with salmon is a hilarious comedy of errors. And most people will have this realization that I can't pay for that prescription I need when I'm 70 on how to build an Earthship. And this is what we saw in Earthship School. That community had been working since the 60s, and the leaders of that community were still struggling because they had succeeded in taking people off the grid. They had succeeded in helping people not live in the system. That was successful. But a lot of our fiat currencies are in place because they're stable, and they remove a lot of the manipulation, one-on-one distrust. They instead allow us to look at a cold, hard currency and treat that cold and hard, and it puts trust in a different conversation. But when the only currency is trust, people will tend to abuse any currency. If it's salt, they'll manipulate the salt somehow. They'll try to get a one-up. If it's fiat currency, they'll try to manipulate the fiat currency and get a one-up. That's how arbitrage works. But when you make and insist that trust is the currency, reliance on one another as currency, don't just hear me as a valuable medium of exchange. Medium of exchange is one aspect of currency, and it's important that you have trust. But when it's also the standard of measure, that's when, and if you know the functions of money, standard of measure, storehouse of value, and a medium of exchange. It's okay for trust to be a medium of exchange. It's not okay for it to be a standard of measure or storehouse of value. Those are the three modalities of money. And when you get into a commune or get into a community and you suddenly start using trust for all three of those, that's when you really start to have problems. That's when it falls apart. And that's when the worser aspects of humans come out. And ultimately, these communities fall apart. These communities eventually have to pivot to a fiat model. Me and Marissa realized that. We came back. And so we started educating ourselves. So, how do you educate yourself? Well, a lot of people have an unconscious knowing of what I'm talking about, alternate lifestyles. So they're going to do digital nomad system. That's their way to keep one toe in the system, but also kind of live a little bit of what they want out of life. But another area that this is going on is cryptocurrency. And we're seeing a lot of people think, well, maybe I could bail out of the system if I take my $1,000 or my $10,000 and throw it at a Dogecoin or a Shiba Inu and watch it go to the moon. And a lot of people are waking up, as I mentioned in the morning news, that their markets are down significantly. And for people who threw their only investment dollars, their $1,000 or their $10,000 at these things and watching it down, they're probably panicking. And now they can't dollar cost average because all of their money is tied up and reduced. And now they feel stupid. Now they don't want to talk to their family. Now they're dealing with shame. Now they're dealing with irresponsibility. I think it was Chris Sacca, the venture capital investor, who said, I think I mentioned this yesterday, when we do well, we attribute it to our genius. And when we do poorly, we attribute it to luck. We need to invert this equation. When we do well, we need to attribute it to luck. And when we do poorly, we need to blame ourselves for not being better organized, doing better research. And that's what people are realizing today. How are we solving this for you today in today's show? I'm solving this because I want to give you context. There's 3 major ways to make money. I'll touch that very quickly. And then I'll tell you how much you should be investing in crypto. And it's way painful. And I wrote in the title of today's show, it's painful because too many of you are realizing in a down market, a bear market reveals your flaws. And you're realizing in a bear market for crypto, your flaws as it comes to crypto. And that is you believed it would be your savior. You believe that you could pick, you were smart enough to pick a winner. And none of us are. I'm not smart enough to pick a winner. But I'm smart enough with the strategy. So first off, very quickly, 3 quick principles I want to remind you of this morning. I just want to remind you of these principles. I know you know them. But when you want to live an alternate lifestyle, when society is, the promise of society to wane and you're in a post-pandemic world and you're worried about your financial future and you want to live an alternate lifestyle and something like crypto comes along and you think, I'm going to throw it all in. When you get into that state, I just want to remind you, Uncle Grant just wants to remind you of these 3 quick principles. Number 1, the longer you invest, the lower your risk. If you're just now jumping into crypto, you've probably been in crypto less than 4 months. If you're just now jumping into crypto, you probably don't know anything about it. And it's going to take you a long time. In summer 2020, when the pandemic first hit, me and Marissa had the fortuitous insight to look at each other in the eye and put our values to the test, buy low, sell high. We put that money, we put our dollars in the stock market. We did some picks. We did a whole system around it, but we told ourselves we wouldn't touch it for 2 years. The cryptos you picked back in October and September, can you just sit on them for 2 years and then come up for air? Are you going to watch the bear market and bail out right now? Principle number 1, the longer you invest, the lower your risk. Principle number 2, trying to pick winners loses. Trying to pick winners loses. Choose the whole market instead. In the stock market, this relates to index funds. Me and Marissa have done a lot of good money with index funds, or if we did pick stocks, we picked a basket of stocks. And in our basket of stocks, I think in that example of last summer of 2020, we spent about $5 or $6 grand. I don't remember the total amount, but it went to about 25 grand. And we had 2 of them, 2 of the 12 that we picked 12. 2 of them went to absolute zero. The rest of them took off. It was a good bet. But as it pertains to crypto, you can also find crypto index funds. And I'm going to encourage everyone. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to encourage everyone to do that. That would be financial advice. I'm going to do this. But the principle is trying to pick winners loses. Choose the whole market instead. And that principle has always been true. In the stock market, it will also be true in crypto. And principle number 3, the sooner you buy the entire market, the better. And by that, I don't mean what a lot of people do is they're waiting. They're holding on to this $10,000 or this $1,000. They're holding on to it, and they're waiting till the market ticks just low enough, and then they're going to throw their $1,000 or $10,000 in, and then the next day it's going to go to the moon, and then they're going to buy a Lamborghini, and they're going to move to the island because that's the awesome myth we all want to live. But the sooner you buy into the whole market, the better. If the last principle is don't try to pick winners, that loses. Instead, choose the whole market. The sooner you get in, not with your whole 10,000 or with your whole 1,000, but as I'm doing, I got in with a portion of it. And then I watched it move. And as it moved lower, I got another portion. An example of this is there was one investment called Wonderland Time that my first investment was at the $8,000 mark. And now it is $900. It lost 90%, except I didn't go all in. I went with my initial investment, and I did another large chunk at $2,000. And I still have a quarter of the investment to invest. So whereas if someone had stuck all the money they had available in, they would be down over 90%. But our investment's only down 30%. And I'm about to buy in at a low. That's called dollar cost averaging. You've heard of it. I live by it. But this makes the third point. The sooner you buy the whole market, the better. But it implies you don't buy with your entire nut, your entire investment amount. So those are the three principles. The longer you invest, the lower your risk. Trying to pick winners loses. And the sooner you buy the whole market, the better. And that's true for me and Marissa as it comes to real estate and stocks and crypto. That's true across the board. So if those are the three principles, then there's only three ways, and there's only three ways to make money. Real estate is obvious. Commercial, residential, multifamily. Commercial real estate, we have 4 rental incomes. The second one is investments. This includes the traditional markets and the non-traditional markets, the stock market and the crypto market. And the third way is marketing. This is your business, your small business, your side hustle, your infopreneur. If you own coin-operated laundry, your business is in the bucket of marketing because your success is dependent on marketing. We don't call this bucket small business. We call this business marketing. The only skill that matters in small business is building a platform in marketing. Hear me on this. If you're a business owner, you're going to wear all the hats. The most important moment is when you've delegated everything that can be delegated so that you can focus on marketing and ultimately sales, but marketing really. Real estate, investment, marketing. These are the only 3 things, the only 3 buckets of thought you should be having. When you think about a coin-operated laundry, it shouldn't be, does that work? There's a formula for that to work. The question is do I have the marketing platform to make that work? And honestly, in terms of the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule, 80% of your time should be focused on marketing your business or your platform. Outside In jumps in real quick. Any thoughts on Bitcoin going to 30K? I've been watching another channel which watches the entire market from gold to shares and crypto. He's been forecasting with very high percentage this past year. So outside In, no, I try not to forecast at all. I believe the market will go lower. I never try to pick the bottom, though. If you catch me at all watching this show, what I always do is I dollar cost average. So do I think it could go to 30? Definitely. I was here in the olden days when Bitcoin was at $800. Hello. And I watched it rally to $2,000. I thought there's no way it's going to go higher. So you could have put in here any thoughts on Bitcoin going to 60K. I'm going to tell you absolutely, but I'm going to be selling in chunks and buying in chunks. I am not trying to time the market. Will it go to 30K in this bear market? Well, it's hard to say. We're at the all-time 6-month all-time low at 38,000 right now. But within the last year, it's been as low as 29 or 30. So will it retouch those points? I have no idea. We'll get into that. Maybe if you jump into the Discord, there are some technical chart traders, and we could look at some of the technical charts, but I really try not to speculate. So let me wrap this idea up. What would I do with $10,000 for the rest of you guys? What would I do with $10,000? And remember, the title of the show is how much crypto should you invest in considering your whole market? Do you have your real estate set up? That's the first question. If you don't have real estate set up and you've got 10K, shame on you. Like, there are ways for you to get into real estate with 10K. There are ways. It's not easy, not in today's real estate market, but you can do it. And if it's a focus and real estate is very predictable and your goal is financial freedom. Now, if you want to be a crypto pro, of course, if you want everyone to look at you and point and see how awesome you are because you picked the right cryptos and you talked about the shiniest thing, which I like, that's super fun. If you wanted to do that, then of course don't get into real estate. But if you're here on this channel to talk about financial freedom, So you can talk about mental freedom and time freedom and location freedom. You have to take 10K and like get your real estate set up. So for today's purposes of investable dollars in this hypothetical 10,000 bucks, we're only going to be focusing on the mountain of investing. If we're talking about if we're including the mountain of real estate, I think you should nearly go all in on real estate. If you are talking about marketing, marketing shouldn't take a lot of dollars, but it should take up 80% of your time. So that leaves the mountain of investment. So if I have 10K, I'm going to break this down for you really quick. Number one, if I had 10K for investing right now, 50% of it would go to the traditional market. So right away, $5,000 is going traditional markets. I would break that number down differently entirely. But focusing for a moment on just crypto. So I've got $5,000 now. If I had 10K, I'd only actually have 5K for crypto. Now, of that 5K for crypto, 50% of that 5K should be extremely conservative and risk averse. Hey, shame on me. I'm not a crypto bro. I was here in 2015, 2017. I saw people with Lambos lose everything, including their families. I'm not into that. I'm into financial freedom. So 50% should be into what I would call the crypto market as a whole. Now, there's different strategies for this. In stocks, it's easy to go find an index fund like the Vanguard 500 index fund. There are some awesome crypto index funds, but they don't have a lot of history. So 50% would be in extremely conservative, low yield index funds that have a slow return. It would be getting way more return than my index funds over in the traditional market, especially with staking, but it would be treated as if it were an index fund. And I would try to get the market at large. That would include some stable coins and some of the top 5 by market cap cryptocurrencies. Outside In says, boom. Our real estate market's in trouble. Landlords can't find tenants, even private business that rent rooms. What market are you in, Outside In? I really appreciate this, Outside In. What market are you in? Even private businesses that rent rooms on a weekly basis are struggling at 50% occupancy, even at reduced rates. Now, for another conversation another day, we'll talk about real estate on another day, but we actually always calculate our profit margins at a 50% occupancy, which I appreciate you doing, Outside In. Hey, let us know what your market is. I really appreciate that. So again, we had 10 grand, cut it in half. Half went to traditional market, 5 grand went to crypto market. Of that, 50% goes to what I would treat like a crypto index fund. Again, I say it like that because there's not clear-cut index funds for the crypto market yet that I would say have good history. I need to do more homework. There are some interesting things going on, but I would actually buy a basket of cryptos and treat that exact basket and those amounts as if they were their own index fund in a separate account, so I could treat it like it's its own index fund. So that's $2,500 off the top. So now you've only got $2,500 left of that hypothetical 10 grand. Of that, 30% should be individually chosen moderate risk. So we've already got Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of these set up, I would say, in this hypothetical index crypto fund. So I would put XRP, ADA, Solana, some top 10 cryptos that might be wavering, maybe some Polkadot, maybe some Phantom Network. Some of these, well, not Phantom, I wouldn't do that. Moderate risk, but a moderate reward with about, what did we say, 30%. So of the 10K, we split it in half. We split it in half again, went to conservative crypto funds. Now we're only working with $1,500 in things like ADA, XRP, Solana. Let's see if I have this up right here. And then the last 20%, XRP, Solana, Terra Luna, and maybe Avalanche Binance. So then we've only got 20% of the 50% left, which leaves us with how much? $1,000. Only $1,000 would go into any high risk DAOs, Wonderland Time, Jade Protocol. I lost our shirt on Jade Protocol, or at least we currently have lost our shirt. We'll see if they keep the project going. Wonderland, we're down 90%. We're really rooting for the Wonderland crew, but all of this is being done with less than 20% of the original investment. That comes to 10% of the original investment. So let me answer this question. How much crypto should you invest? Well, A, you should only ever invest the amount of crypto you can lose. But B, you need to be smarter about this. Crypto will save us only because crypto will eat the future. There are many opportunities. Now there's too many opportunities. and legit opportunities. There's a lot of shills, there's a lot of fakes, but there's so many good opportunities. I was talking with a crypto friend yesterday. There's so many good opportunities that you will never be able to focus enough to pick winners. So maybe you need to quit looking at the market and start looking at your strategy. If you had 10K, or if you had 1,000, if you only had $1,000, a lot of you don't have 10K. And if you have 10K and you haven't invested in real estate and haven't built your side business, shame on you. When I hang this show up, I'll look at my investments, I'll look at our Patreon, I'll look at the YouTube, I'll check all of that, but I will shift gears immediately and go to the number one income stream I have, my businesses and my real estate, and I'll spend 90% of the rest of the day in that. Why? Because I control everything with real estate. I control everything with my businesses. I hardly control anything in my investments other than my strategy. So I hope this has been helpful to you. And I wanna always make sure, I hope you got something out of this, and do the replay. Once the show ends, do the replay so you can get that actual breakdown, because that actual breakdown, the money was hypothetical. 10 grand for you. I've been doing this. I think we're vested now with 12, 15, 20 grand like that. And from my original $800 from back in the day. The money is hypothetical in this example, but the breakdowns are my strategy. Hear that. The breakdowns I gave you are my strategy. If you're going to be on, if you want to see it, you can see my portfolio as a patron. I give my portfolio in the patron. I give my some of my portfolio and my buy alerts to the patrons. Check that out. But in the Discord, we're also talking a lot about this. So please get involved if you want to ask more questions like this or anything with financial freedom. But why do we talk about all this? Remember, it's about location freedom. It's about time freedom. It's only about those because it's about mental freedom, and it's only, or financial freedom. And it's only about that because it's about mental freedom, so that you can experience the life you want to experience while still being responsible with your future. Remember, no matter what you do with crypto, no matter what you do with real estate, remember why we do it, for the mission of igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. Have a kick-ass day.